Okay, so I have the pleasure of being joined by Kevin Dunckley, the Chief Sustainability and Innovation Officer at HH Global. So, Kevin, how did you get into marketing?
Well, it was through the creative process. I ran studios when the dawn of the Apple Mac came, so probably the 90s, which disrupted a whole industry in the kind of print marketing side of things. So you had to be on an Apple Mac. And then became quite good on the Apple Mac, became the manager of people on the Apple Macs, and some of those were creative people. So it kind of stemmed from there, and then technology and marketing and creative studio work came together with the dawn of the internet. And so I just kind of fell into it through sort of one part being the creative studio manager and the second part the technology. And before I knew it, I was into the world of marketing. So it wasn't a plan.
Interesting. Yeah, I think people either seem to come in from the traditional, what would be classed as traditional from the degree level and that side, or it's kind of just evolves into becoming involved in marketing, and you kind of sticks and you stay there, which is good. So what does your current role involve?
So it's a global role. We're a marketing execution business. So to explain that is outsourced marketing of physical and digital campaigns. So big brands outsource to us. I mean, big brands who spend $10 million or more a year, and we make their campaigns happen over 50 countries. A key part of that is innovation, added value innovation, how to bring these campaigns to life beyond the sort of bread and butter stuff, and also layering on authenticity around sustainability, being a responsible brand, a purposeful brand. So really interesting time. So that's what I do. I look after that. I'm a board level member. And so it's very important to us that we guide our clients who need guiding, and we support the clients who already have a clear plan. And we work with both.
So we were chatting earlier about sustainability and innovation. Which of the two do you see to be most important right now?
I think they're two sides of the same coin. So I think because sustainable innovation could be a new material that maybe means less plastic, or it could be the latest blockchain and AI platform that helps you solve waste challenges. So I kind of started off compartmentalising the two things separately about 18 months ago. And then the more I've done that, the more they collide inevitably. So I think sustainable innovation is the answer. Both are equally important. And just to qualify that, to change things, which is what we need to do as a human race, you need to innovate. You need to think differently, change processes, change behaviours, change the way you do things. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So do you have any tips on how to think differently? Because I think, one of the kind of key questions I get, particularly from students, is how do you keep on top of constant changes? But also, how do you challenge yourself to think in a different way? Do you have any tips on that?
I think that's something you can learn. It's about being curious. It's about I don't know how you train yourself to do it, but it's about liking what you're doing and also always thinking about why is it this way? Why has somebody or some organisation defined it's done this way? What about if we were redesigning it tomorrow? Would we do it that way? And that's what I often ask myself. And I actually mentioned that in a call on Friday with colleagues. I said, if we were designing this from scratch, would we be doing this? No, we're bolting something onto something that's suboptimal. Okay, so let's imagine we've got a blank sheet of paper. What would we do? Well, that's a different question. Precisely. So it's about trying to, maybe it's a bit of experience, maybe it's a bit of, are we answering the wrong question? I think innovation experts tend to reframe the question and turn it on its head. So I think it's about and that's a learned skill actually, that can be learned. So I think it's about staying curious, and it's about challenging the brief and turning it around and looking at it from a couple of different angles. You get better solutions that way.
I like that, challenging the brief. That's a good one. Okay, so for anyone that's aspiring to be a marketer, maybe they're just starting out in the industry, or they might be studying a course, or they're starting to get a little bit curious about marketing, is there any advice that you would give to those aspiring marketeers?
Yeah, I would give a couple of things. One is it's about storytelling. So I think you have to fall in love with storytelling. You have to be someone who likes telling a story, listening to a story, being part of the story. Otherwise, marketing probably isn't for you. So that, if we assume that that's happened, I would then try and find the brands or the sector or the industries that you're excited about and you're interested in, because surely you'd want to work in a marketing and storytelling function of a brand or a sector that you love and that you're interested in. So whether that's fashion or technology or whatever it might be, to try and first of all clarify you really do love marketing, because it's not all sunshine and roses. There are there's some heavy lifting and some nasty stuff that he's doing as well. It's not so glamorous. But when the actual product is right, when you've actually done it, then you want to feel proud of it and be actually invested in it personally. So I would say look at the industries or the brands or the sectors you're passionate about individually, and try and see if you can get a marketing role in that, because then it won't feel like work.
Yeah, no, I like that. Aligning your passion. That's a great tip. In the book, you're quoted in the book, and you say about with a plan, you're planning to fail. The marketing is no different. So how can you hit your target if you don't know where it is? So what's your tips on getting started with marketing planning? There's lots of businesses that really struggle to either define their target clearly or their objective, or even just to start that process of marketing planning. Do you have any tips for that?
I think that's the same planning for anything, really. You need to just break down what you're trying to achieve. Is it acquisition? Is it, gone away clients? Is it brand awareness? And then you need to break it down into its constituent parts. What does good look like and what we're trying to achieve? And then work back from that. We still see today brands doing things, particularly in retail and digital, that are not thought through. What does good look like? How are you measuring whether it's a successful campaign or not? They've just not planned at all to measure. It's more just about, this is going to look good. This might be a vanity project. There's a lot of that going on in retail at the moment. On the other side, the more operationally savvy brands, particularly FMCG, are looking at effectiveness. So decide what is effective. What are you trying to achieve with this? How do you measure it? What's the data that's going to prove that this has worked? What are the metrics? Because you need some sort of a target. So breaking down what you're trying to achieve, and then some sort of key indicators as to whether you hit that or not. Effectiveness is the key word we keep hearing at the minute around any marketing.
And do you have an example that you can share of an organisation that has classed something to be effective, so we can get some context?
Yeah, actually, I'm hugely impressed with one of our clients at P&G. We're working with them across a number of regions, and the questions that they ask us and the way that they look at any campaign, I think, is market leading. So they have 3 or 4 lenses they look through. One is cost. What's this campaign going to cost? Secondly, what is effective? What is the effective measurement for this particular Gillette campaign or Head and Shoulders campaign? They clearly define that at the outset. They look at sustainability because they want to make sure that storytelling to the consumer is a responsible one, whether it's about using recycled plastics or how they're working with the supply chain. And then they look at brand and brand awareness. So they almost have 4 lenses that every campaign across every channel is looked through before they start. And the more I talk to them across different regions, the more impressed I am with them. And I think they're the biggest FMCG in the world, aren't they, anyway? So it's probably no coincidence.
Yeah, I think they are. It sounds very strategic, which is good. Quite impressive. That's good to hear that, especially with the KPI piece and the measurement. Because having that at the very beginning means then you've got those clear objectives to go back to and those milestones.
Well, it also allows agencies and partners to offer a pay-for-performance model. So if it's clearly that this is the target, then you can say, well, if we help you hit that target, then our remuneration maybe should be based on that. We'll back ourselves rather than just having a fixed rate card or a fee. And you're seeing more of that happening now as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. So then it's less vague, I guess, as well, for everybody involved of what everybody's aiming for. So everyone can be briefed.
Absolutely. And it freaks some people out, but others, if you're a good company, a good agency, a good partner, you shouldn't be afraid to back yourself with some sort of performance paid reward. And so I think you're going to see more of that. That's a big trend we're seeing at the moment.
Okay, that's an interesting approach. Do you come across any challenges with clients when they're implementing a marketing plan?
Oh, yes, every day.
Can you give some examples?
Every day. Changing the plans mid-flight.
I think that's
ambiguity.
My favourite one.
channel misconceptions. That this channel, the way the budget's split, is often predefined. So we would rather be a bit more consulted in those conversations. The rush to digital, where digital isn't necessarily the answer in a particular scenario. So multi-channel, omni-channel, whatever phrase people use is the answer. That the consumer that you engage with across multiple channels is the most valuable consumer. I think that's a known truth. So then if that's known, why are so many brands still saying we have to do digital streams in a retail environment? And we go, well, why? Why? We're happy to do that.
Everyone else is, no?
Yeah. And how are you going to measure the success of that? And then it goes quiet. And so that's that challenge in the brief piece again. It's about not trying to be controversial. It's about just make sure that the marketing budget is spent in the right way based on the objectives and the channels at hand.
Do you think that's a kind of result of not necessarily knowing the customer very well?
Possibly. I mean, there is some brands do it better than others, don't they? Some do, and I think there are a lot of brands who still do things because they've always done them and it looks like it works, but they're not quite sure it works. Something in the mix is working. The sales have risen and we've acquired new customers, but not quite sure exactly what it was. So I think that's still happening. And I think our role is to try and help clients and brands see that there are ways of measuring physical, digital. That you can measure what's happening in the store as well as you can on what's happening on the website. Not everybody's aware. So that's technology. The rise of technology and innovation around that has harnessed that and got that out there. So, yeah.
Have you seen any kind of like key changes pre and post COVID as we're starting to get back to some form of normality now?
Well, apart from the obvious, Zoom calls and the face-to-face interaction changing, I think some of it will stay changed because it saves money and it's more efficient and we're all more productive now, aren't we? And all more burnt out. But I think we've seen a massive acceleration in sustainability conversations with every brand we work with. It's because of, we were chatting about it earlier, it's about everybody's realised the fragility of their partner networks, their supply chains, their health, the ecosystems, our communities. It's all been under threat and still is to a small degree. So people have started to look at what's really important, not only personally and from their family perspective, but from their company and their work life and their brands. And authentic brands have stood up as leaders in this pandemic, haven't they? You've seen brands come into the fore and people won't forget that. Consumers won't forget that. And I think brands are realising that being a purposeful business will attract talent, will retain talent, will attract customers and keep consumers. It's just completely accelerated the sustainability conversation in the last 12 months.
It's almost like not just as you mentioned there, the priority of your personal life has posed questions of the priorities of the business and the company and what does it stand for, and that
I can give you a stat. You might want to quote this. This came last week. Our global CEO gave us this, and I think it was Microsoft research globally that said 40% of current employees are considering their next move. 40.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's enormous, isn't it? Half of the world working population is considering its next role.
It's really interesting. I'm not sure if you saw what happened with BaseCamp in the last week or so, where BaseCamp has been an organisation that has been quite vocal on key topics, political, social. The founders in particular, not necessarily the company, but the founders are very high profile for the organisation. And it's a tech organization. It's very innovative. They've got lots of new products coming out all the time. They just launched a new email product, and they changed their rules on what their employees could talk about in the company, and they effectively changed the culture overnight and said that they no longer wanted political conversations in the organization. Anything to do with that needs to be taken outside of the company. Now, that could be right or wrong, but their approach has meant that nearly 30% of their organization staff has left because it was like an immediate, we've changed our approach without any kind of consultation. And I think just going back on what you were saying there, I think now those priorities have changed, and there's been lots of positives but also negatives that have come out of COVID and impacts to people's lives. I think now that importance of where you work, not only in the situation, location that you're in, because there's lots of people moving out of city centres, but also where you work has now become really important to align with your own beliefs, I think, more than ever. I think people are now willing to take the risk of potentially leaving and then going to another organization. So it's, I suppose I am surprised by that stat there, but then on another sense, I'm not. If the organization does change what they believe in and the staff don't believe in that, they are very quick now, I've seen, to just step away, no questions asked.
Yeah, I think we've all, I think we've all just suddenly had a moment of reflection, a long moment of reflection, haven't we? Going on for a year, and people are going, does what I'm doing really matter? Do I love this organisation or brand? Actually, no, I just do it for the money. Maybe I should. Maybe people have realised you've only got limited runway in your life, and I'm wasting it working for a company I don't really like that much. Maybe I should join something else. I've seen it in our business. I've had somebody leave to join an NGO, so for less money, but they wanted to work for a not-for-profit because that was their passion. And so the corporate world, which is kind of where we are, is not for them. So you have to admire people who've done that.
Yeah, it goes back to your advice at the very beginning about aligning your passion. It's really important. What do you think are the most common pitfalls a marketeer faces, and how could they overcome them?
Oh, it all seems to move too fast. I think speed is the enemy, isn't it? Everything seems to be really, really fast, and I think not consulting with your partners as much as you should, because there's so much knowledge and latent intelligence in your partners, whether that's your agencies or there's a range of partners that brands work with. Harnessing that, I think, is probably the big missed opportunity for a lot of brands, and we're starting to see that happening as well. I was on with a UK retail brand last week where 10 different agencies and partners were all on the same call, collaborating. Now that's almost unheard of, and it's because the client is trying to leverage the combined intelligence of the group to decide which way to go on certain decisions. So I think that's what brands aren't doing that should do more of, because we're stronger together, aren't we? And as long as we're not infringing IP and crossing into each other's competitive spaces, then it can work.
Yeah, and it's always really useful, both work for agencies. It's always really useful to be able to coordinate with another agency that's working for the same client. So there's not that there's no conflict there, but so that there can be a collaborative approach, because that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
I heard a quote over the weekend from one of the chief procurement officers of Adidas, and he said something like, collaboration eats competitive tension every day. And it's like, wow, that kind of sums it up. Working together is way more powerful than trying to just beat your competition all the time.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Great quote. So from all of that experience that you've gained and working with all those different, huge organizations and brands and clients, what advice would you give yourself if you look back now, your younger self, when you first started out in marketing?
What advice would I give myself? You don't know what you don't know when you're younger, do you? So if I wish I'd known what I know now then, I think probably is to associate yourself with the smartest people you know. So don't be scared by somebody who seems to be so much ahead of you in their thinking or their experience. Try and learn from them, associate with them. Most people will help up and coming talent and younger talent. So I think your network, and it's never been easier to build a network now. It was easier now than it was, when I started. You can contact the CEO of a business. They may not come back to you, but you can contact them in a couple of clicks. So associate yourself with really smart people that you admire, because some of that will rub off on you and you become smarter. It's all about learning. Stay curious and learn. But associating with people who, you feel they're not stretching you, you're not going to grow. So that would be the key thing.
Awesome. Absolute pleasure to talk to you as always, Kevin. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much for contributing to the book as well. Great to talk to you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jenna.